Hi there, and welcome to today's video. And today I've got a super long and fairly complex question from Bryan. But I can see exactly where Bryan's coming from, and it's the type of thing that I can sure that a good many of you have been struggling with as far as your marathon, ultra-marathon, trail running type of training is concerned. And what Bryan says is as follows, is in training, I find myself burning out quickly when I run long hills. I'm almost forced to start walking because my heart rate skyrockets and I start to overheat. And once I start overheating, it's really, really hard for me to be able to cool down again afterwards. At this point, I run a half marathon in 2 hours 08. So I guess I would consider myself something of an intermediate runner. And I notice that I can run a much quicker and consistent pace on a route that has got shorter hills, say a pace of around about 8 minutes 30 per mile. My goal is to substantially improve my uphill run so that I can keep running without having to stop and walk when going up a long hill. I thought of wearing a training mask during runs to try and build up my cardio or hit the gym to strength train. Do I have any suggestions for Bryan? For Bryan, absolutely, I have a number of suggestions, and neither of them will involve hitting the gym to strength train or put on a training mask. It's something that I've learned from working with cyclists, because within the cycling industry, you have items called power meters that you can put onto a bike to measure your actual physical power output. And hopefully within one of these days, we'll be able to get to the point of being able to measure power output in wattage as far as for runners to be able to give them a reasonably accurate wattage. But because you're talking about running up a long hill, it will be possible by way of time, pacing, and your body weight to be able to get a rough calculation of what type of wattage you're putting out. And if you're overheating, if your heart rate is skyrocketing, and you're needing to stop and walk, what I am 90% sure is the problem. And again, Bryan, because I'm not your coach and I haven't got privy to your detailed training data, if I were to be your coach, I would be looking at your body weight. I'd be looking at the amount of elevation your long hill has gone. I'd be looking at the type of time you're looking at running up the hill, calculate all that down into wattage, and then make sure that I convert that wattage down to about 1.5 to maybe 2 watts per kilogram of body weight, convert that back out into a time for the hill, convert that back out into a pacing, and give that to you as a pacing to use for your hill climb. But again, because I'm not your coach, I don't have privy to all of that technical data that I'd need to be able to calculate your pacing for running long hills. But without that data, what I'd say to you, Bryan, is get out there. If you're wanting to get better at running long hills, you need to run more long hills. It's as simple as that. But don't go and attack the base of your long hill at your normal half marathon pace, because all you're going to be doing, as you say, is your heart rate starts skyrocketing. When your heart rate skyrockets, you push yourself into above your anaerobic threshold. And when you push yourself above your anaerobic threshold, your muscles are consuming more oxygen than what you're able to absorb into your bloodstream. So which means that you're getting more and more and more into oxygen debt, building up more and more and more lactate within your system until everything just comes seizing to a halt in this absolute sea of lactate. Obviously, training at higher altitudes will help you to increase your hematocrit level, increase your red blood cell count, to be able to carry more oxygen to your muscles because you've got more red blood cells. Or in the case of folks like Lance Armstrong, for instance, he would just hauled out the syringe and topped his levels up with Edgar, and that helped him to increase his hematocrit, helped him to increase his red blood cell count, which helped him to carry more oxygen to his muscles. But there's no ways that I'm ever going to be suggesting to any athlete that they get onto the Edgar, that they get onto the juice to be able to increase their oxygen carrying capacity. So what I'd be looking at is training at a bit more altitude, looking at training on more long hills, and when you're doing your long hill training, start your hill at the bottom at a ridiculously slow pace. Bring your pace right down to just slightly faster than walking pace. Start the long hill at that pace. And if you get to the final part, what would normally equate to a short hill for you, and you've got energy reserves, energy still in reserve, increase your pace at that stage. And then as you run more long hills, you'll be able to get a feel for what type of slower than normal pace you can start the hill. Because that's the thing, if when you're running to your optimum wattage, and your optimum wattage for your lactate level, then what you'll see is when you get to a long hill in a race, you start your hill at your pace that you're needing to be doing for your optimum wattage, and you watch the other runners go away from you. Don't worry about them. Stick to your wattage. Because what will happen when you get to the last part of the hill, all of those guys that push their wattage way up will get into their anaerobic, go above the anaerobic threshold, get lost in an absolute sea of lactate, and in the last quarter of the hill, all of those athletes that pulled away from you in the bottom half of the hill, they'll all be coming back to you and more. So that's my take on what to do as far as long hills are concerned. But if you're wanting to get better at long hills, get out on long hills. Don't look at strength training, training masks, or anything like that to try and imitate it. It's the constant power output at 1.5 to 2 watts per kilo out on your long hills, and once you can manage that, you can take it up to 2.5 watts per kilo, 3 watts per kilo, and then work out your ideal wattage, your ideal pacing for your long hills. That's my take on the matter. Feel free to post any comments and questions down below, and share this out amongst your running friends. If you like this type of video content, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. That way I know what type of content to be putting out in the future. And last but by no means least, click that big red subscribe button that you see down below the bottom left hand corner of this video screen. That way you can stay subscribed to my channel for all of the new content that I post out on a month to month, week to week, day to day basis. Stay carved up for the win out there. I'll be seeing you next time. Cheers.